Yes! 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 Oh! Oh, my adrenaline! I did it! Oh! We ride off into the sunset, or surf off into the sunset, I don't care. Oh my god. Yes! Oh my god. I was so stressed for that last part. Oh, we did it. There it is. There it is. Oh my god. Hold on. Honestly, this is probably the best scenario that could have happened, right? Originally, it would have been great if I could have had this be part of the Sunday video. Or, well, I guess today is Sunday, ironically. I literally have the video up now for custom night, and it would have been fitting to have this be part of that, but it was already edited and everything. But regardless, it's perfect because now we can cover extras. Regardless, finally we get to the mascots. Now, the only thing I don't know is what these are supposed to be about, to be honest. There's like, I don't know what those have anything to do with the game, because there's like another 3, 9, 12 characters, apparently. But anyways, for now, let's go through the characters. Obviously, we already saw jump scares, or I guess for animatronic Mario there is no jump scare. But for Mario, we have some bio information. Serial number D590, Onyx Dune Science Corporation. Codename Power Star. Host's name Jacob Noel. Status subjugated. Oh boy, okay, I'm glad I left this for a video. Okay, holy. Okay, we got a lot to go through because there's again 12 characters. Jacob Noel was a daytime janitor and after-hour cleanup crew member here at the park until his assimilation with D590 on May 10th, 2004. M33D10 subdued and paralyzed him after detecting him in hallway A1 on our 3rd floor. According to CCTV footage, Jacob had caught a glimpse of an A-class employee, Jeremy Larson, heading towards the hidden elevator formerly located at the construction site for Mario's Showtime. Jeremy kept a spare keycard in his pocket which fell out before he entered the break room. Jacob pocketed the card after Jeremy was out of sight and later boarded the elevator down to the 3rd floor. Jacob was already a top candidate for assimilation with D590 due to his disconnection from the other staff and his cold demeanor towards most who approached him. Leonard and Dr. Craigsmith were pleased with M33D10 after Jacob's capture and instructed surgery to begin immediately. All procedures went well, and Jacob's assimilation with D590 was nearly seamless. So, I already kind of know about the characters themselves because I've seen them in the comments, but essentially, these aren't like spirits possessing characters or mascots. These are like fusions, or you know what I mean? It's like meshing together humans with the mascots. That's why you see some mascots have their more like some mascots like this, which literally has like a hand sticking out of the mouth with like part of what looks like a face / skull. Same with Ness. I'm guessing this is pretty much why this is a result of that fusion to some extent, even here. Our first successful experiment in developing a bio mascot that can be properly presented to the public. Ever since his implantation in Mario Showtime, daily attendance has shot up and patrons have been drawn towards his theater. D590 inhibits loyalty and follows commands without error. The only issue that we have observed from D590 is a glitch in his system that causes him to wander without direction around the park. If an electrical device of any kind enters his immediate proximity, he will use his ability that allows him to interact with the TVs in the showroom to disable it. Fortunately, this does not seem to be indefinite, as a hard reboot usually restores the electronics that he tampers with to their normal state. We currently are unsure of what causes the glitch, whether it be the animatronic suit or the chip in the host's brain. So, okay, and Leonard and Dr. Craigsmith have argued about this for a while now. Leonard doesn't want his main attraction put under maintenance. However, Dr. Craigsmith believes that any issue, no matter how minor, with an experiment of the importance such as this, should be corrected immediately. Aside from this, D590 is in a mostly exceptional state and should be the first in line for many to come. Now, we're talking about bio mascots, that's the term they use here. Not only, they're meshing them also with chips, right? And we know that this is an animatronic. This is the only successful one, right? This is the only mascot that looks normal, but everyone else, you can see, looks off, except for Meta Knight, I guess. Meta Knight is the only other one that looks normal, but everyone else has, you know, clear deformities. And I'm sure we'll learn why Mario was the only one to actually be successful. So next we have Luigi. Poltergust, A0091, Anthony Weller, status feral, host bio. Anthony Weller was a waiter at Limoncello, an Italian restaurant 10 miles away from the park. Detective Brooks snipped him out for us due to his weight and height being the perfect fit for A0091, alongside his general lack of presence in the community. On July 19, 2001, one of our collection crew members seized him outside of a bus stop at 12:22 and brought him back to the park, where surgery began immediately. All procedures went well, and Anthony's assimilation to a AA091 was initially a success. Okay, so I think that's an error, because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be A0091, not AA091. Also, it seems like the subjects that they look for, or I guess the hosts, right? Because subjects are pretty much there when they're fully meshed now, or meshed in general, right? When they're actually like combined with the mascot, and host is who they were originally. The hosts that they're looking for are all people that are easily forgotten, I guess you could say, people who are disconnected from the community, who nobody would really notice if they went missing. That's what it seems like here. Now, this was before Mario. If we go back to Mario, they said 2004, and this is the first success. That could explain why everyone else looks so monstrous, because that's literally, you know, like maybe what happened with Mario is they finally perfected the procedure, but beforehand was a lot of failures and issues. A0091, like many biomascots before him, not only went through increased levels of decomposition, resulting in the loss of his lower jaw and right arm, but also quickly turned feral. Thankfully, A0091 managed to only kill one of our staff members, considerably low compared to our other feral biomascots. Nonetheless, A0091 was mostly a failure and did not provide much useful information towards the betterment of Project Emerald. He is currently being held in Floor 2, holding Cell A3 with other feral biomascots. So, okay, now here comes the next question, right? These mascots seems like they're not just being, it's not like, you know, we're not just dealing with like the combining their mind, or like putting their mind in the mascots or the suits or whatnot. They are like physically combining them to a certain extent with surgery, right? As they mentioned, they did it perfectly with Mario, but with Luigi, you can tell there is some sort of the decomposition. I'm just confused as to what's exactly decomposing, right? Like, is part of the Luigi mascot suit also decomposing as well? Is that why it looks like this? And you can literally see the flies on it, right? So that's also signs of decomposition, right? But you don't see that with Mario, which is an interesting, like, how did they manage to perfect Mario, I guess, is my question. And what is Project Emerald? Why are they doing all this? Why are they creating biomascots? So many questions already. Next, we have mascot Pikachu. C97B, codename Electrobolt, Daniel Forrest, feral as well. Daniel Forrest was the last child captured by the Mappy animatronic, and the only one that we have ever used when assimilating a subject to a biomascot. The only part of him that was used in C97B was his brain, which we melded into the skull of an adult subject that we got from the coroner's office. Another first. We were hoping the C97B would not only teach us if the brains of children biomascots would lend well to their innocence, but also if cadavers could be a reliable source of hosts for the biomascots. While all procedures in the assimilation process went well, we quickly found that C97B's movements were not only clumsy and aimless, but also that they were more aggressive than other feral biomascots. We are currently unsure, as Dr. Craigsmith and Dr. Silver are still in the process of investigating. So that's two doctors. So they've captured children before, right? But they haven't. But this is the first child used in the assimilation process. Not only that, they only used the brain, and they used the skull of an adult subject. So they're doing like so Pikachu is like the result of like multiple assimilations almost, right? With an adult subject and a child subject. First time using a cadaver. While C97B is most of the time fairly sluggish and incautious with their movements, they are rather intelligent. During cognitive tests, we found that C97B was able to maneuver towards locations far from his, even in pitch black conditions. Explained in the gameplay as well. In testing, it was found that he could discover the location of those even in the most clever hiding spots. The only weakness we found was, ironically, when we were trying to give him an immunity to electricity, a process that did the exact opposite. Again, electric shock for defense. While in high voltage electronic shock or electric shock is enough to deter him from attacking, it seems that he does possess some immunity towards it, not in terms of pain, but certainly in endurance, with even some of the most powerful shocks only momentarily stunning him. While C97B is an exceptional experiment, it is not what Silver and Leonard want from Project Emerald. C97B is currently being held in Floor 2, holding cell A0, separate from the other feral biomascots as to prevent potential injury of staff and experiment assets. Next we have Kirby. Pop star Liam Hall feral again, E580D. Liam Hall, who was a Snoopy journalist for the Boston Herald who bought a ticket for the park and entered on September 25th, 2003. He started snooping around the park grounds, sticking his nose where it wasn't welcome for 3 hours. It didn't take long for security to figure out what he was doing, leading to his detainment. At that time, we had been looking for a subject to assimilate with E580D, and Liam was the perfect fit. So here's another thing. How do they know which subjects would be the perfect fit? What are they determining that, right? Is it just like on a physical level, or are they also trying to take personality into account? And also, this corporation, the Onyx Student Science Corporation, seems to have quite a lot of connections in general, because as we saw for the Luigi host, right, they were pretty much taken by a detective. It seems like Liam's assimilation with E580D was initially seamless, usually, until an issue arose. Due to several procedures during the surgery being botched, Liam's body began to puff up inside the costume, leading to his arm being permanently pushed outside of the mouth. We are not sure how or why this happened, however. E580D did not encounter any problems after this, other than the fact that they're feral, which we'll read in the subject bio, but that explains why we see the hand here. So they are literally being surgically like meshed with the suits on the inside. E580D is rather inconsistent. Sometimes he lacks any form of intelligence and seems to enter a state of mindlessness, while other times he is rather crafty and can pull off impressive feats. This mood and mindset change seems to occur solely based on his current appetite. When he's full, he becomes somewhat docile unless his personal space is invaded. If he's hungry, meanwhile, not only does his aggression boost up, but also his intelligence. We believe that E580D prefers to only use his brain when it is necessary for him to find food, and will do anything he can to get said food. A trick he often tries is deflating his body and costume to fit inside small spaces, the vents, most frequently air vents. If 580D goes without food for long enough, he will enter a state of extreme and rare anger that we have dubbed primal irritation, the most dangerous state that a biomascot has entered. Thankfully, this has only happened once, and while E580D is still prone to fits of aggression, we've done a good job at keeping up with his feeding schedule. So, it's interesting that this character, being Kirby, is hungry, right? It's kind of, it matches Kirby as a character, interestingly enough. And we also have the rest of page 2, where he is currently being held in floor 2, so holding cell AX. Same thing, prevent potential injury of staff and experiment assets. So, also kept separate. Now, this one I'm curious, Meta Knight, because this one's the only other animatronic. This is C66A2 Dark Matter. So, I saw this name in the comments. I wasn't sure why Meta Knight was being referred to as Dark Matter. I guess it explains it. Grant Shawson, also feral. Grant Shawson was one of our most prominent researchers for Project Emerald. However, after his daughter was killed in a car accident, his His productivity went down and he grew depressed. Eventually, he approached Dr. Craigsmith and Dr. Silver about being the subject used during the development of C66A2. So he volunteered. And this was a prototype for biomascots that could be presented to the public. Both doctors granted his request, resulting in his later assimilation on December 9th, 2004. The assimilation and surgery process was a success until an incident occurred in surgery room B2. A gas pipe inside was ruptured, and as a result of the pipe being located near flammable chemicals, the surgery room caught fire and exploded, killing 4 surgeons and fatally injuring the other 6. Despite this, C66A2 miraculously managed to survive, sustaining only minor injuries outside of his right hand being severed and destroyed during the blast. Really? Wait. Oh, actually, I guess I do kind of notice it. He is kind of missing. It's like the gray part next to the red and yellow. That's where his arm's supposed to be. To make matters better, all information that we needed from him was salvageable, meaning our plans of creating a presentable biomascot were not impossible yet. C66A2 has made a full recovery and functions perfectly, even without his right hand. Rather unfortunately though, C66A2 has retained no obedience, even with his host being Grant, and as a result has turned feral. Nonetheless, Dr. Craigsmith and Leonard are pleased with most of the results. So it's still, so I guess feral isn't not just about aggressiveness, but it's also on the fact of whether they can control the biomascot or not. And even in this case, being an animatronic, it's still feral, so that doesn't have any bearing onto whether they are subjugated like Mario is. C66A2 is our fastest recorded biomascot, reaching speeds of 55.3 kilometers per hour. During cognitive tests, it was also shown that his navigation is flawless, maneuvering through pitch black areas with ease and speed. Despite not possessing any obedience, he still retains Grant's wit, hunting and killing his prey with a vast amount of methods. C66A2 has also the highest kill count of any of our experiments here, ending the lives of at least 15 of our staff. Despite all this, they are not particularly strong, having to rely on his speed and intelligence to kill those he deems as prey or threats. This has made hiding from him in secure areas rather easy for staff who he is targeting. C66A2 is held in floor 2, holding cell AZ. So all these are supposed to be, they're all supposed to be in these holding cells, but were they let loose, or did something happen where they all broke free almost? Because it sounds like from the phone calls that a lot of what's happening should not really be happening. Obviously, the Miss Grant or Miss Grand knows about what's going on with the characters. I'm guessing that this is like a crisis mode in a sense. Maybe I don't think they were supposed to ever break out. Because remember, the only one that did in fact escape was Mario. Not the animatronic Mario, but the mascot Mario. So, again, it's very interesting. It seems like they somehow broke out. Something must have happened with one of their biomascots, I'm guessing. Alright, next we have Ness, who is Gygus? Codename Gygus FD45, Thomas Clark Farrell. Thomas Clark was a librarian who Detective Brooks strikes again, but with Ness this time. Detective Brooks tracked down for us due to his height and weight being a perfect fit. So it's literally like physical. So I know they mentioned this earlier. But yeah, it is physical requirements for the suits, right? They need someone that can fit in the suit properly. He was also a loner in the community, shocker, making his capture process quite easy. On March 8, 2002, one of our collection crew members seized him outside of his house when no one was around. Thomas's assimilation with FD45 was a failure, as one of the surgery procedures was botched, resulting in him entering a melting pot phase that most prominently melted off his arms and parts of his mask, with his skull showing through between his lower jaw and head. Shortly afterward, he got into a struggle with a security guard, resulting in FD45 being slammed into a table that had corrosive chemicals on it. Luckily, the acid was removed from his face before it could do extensive damage, only burning a hole through the right side of his mask, revealing his eye. Aside from all this, FD45 is a functioning subject, although not a special one. While FD45 is one of our weaker experiments, he nonetheless possesses interesting qualities. While he does not have hands, he still has the arm strength capable of snapping necks, as demonstrated 2 times now. His teeth are also surprisingly strong as well, despite the condition of the skull and jawbone itself. FD45 has demonstrated bone-crushing strength with his teeth. Lastly, FD45 can traverse areas with great speed and has shown some intelligence when it comes to ambushing his prey. During cognitive tests, we found that FD45 preferred taking different routes each time he was instructed to enter a location with food. The only weakness for FD45 that we could find was the blaring of loud sounds like fire alarms. FD45 is currently being held in Floor 2, holding Cell A3 with other feral biomascots. So all the weaker ones are generally together, but the more stronger ones, like Pikachu for example, are kept separated, isolated from the others. And I guess that does explain this appearance, though, because again, like, you can tell this is supposed to actually be like a kid's face, but it just looks so gnarly. It's actually insane. Next, we have Mascot Link, Ocarina G67C1, Henry Ortega, feral. Henry Ortega was a construction worker for Suffolk Construction. Detective Brooks suggested him as the host for G67C1 due to his build and strength. Dr. Silver agreed with the assessment and had Henry subdued outside of his job site on February 2nd, 2003, before his assimilation with G67C1 later that night. Not only were all procedures performed successfully, but also to the surprise of staff, G67C1 was initially obedient. After several tests, however, an incident occurred that removed G67C1's obedience entirely. Staff were giving G67C1 several replicas of masks from Majora's Mask that he was instructed to put on. When he later put on Majora's Mask itself, he abruptly started to shake violently before entering a melting pot phase that fused the mask with his face and popped the lower jaw of the host out. Shortly after this, he disemboweled 2 staff members and fatally injured 3 others. Fortunately, he was obtained shortly afterwards and no further injury was caused. It is currently unknown as to why G67C1 entered a melting pot phase, let alone why he turned feral afterwards. Regardless, they were later sedated and Dr. Craysmith got the information he wanted from him even though he was no longer obedient. So, they seem to enter this melting pot phase in, like, it's oddly enough, he entered the melting pot phase after wearing this specific mask. Now, I don't know anything about the Nintendo lore or, you know, the games, really. So, I know Majora's Mask is from Link, you know, Legend of Zelda and all that. Though, I don't really know what's the significance of that. All I can tell, though, is that, obviously, there is some sort of reaction when, like, it's odd how the characters are kind of reacting to things from their own game world or their own personality, like Kirby, for example, having this innate hunger. So it's weird. It's like they're acting like they're characters to some extent. Now, G67C1 is a rather fascinating specimen. Even though he possesses exceptional skill in hunting and killing prey, their resilience to pain is low and his sight is poor. While he can still traverse large areas with time, especially when considering his agility, he still struggles in dark environments. Warding off G67C1 can be done with direct pain such as electroshocks, blunt force objects, and most effective ranged weaponry. While their pain tolerance is not particularly impressive, his healing factors are. From what we have found in testing, G67C1 can regenerate lost tissue in seconds even after fatal injuries. What would even be considered a fatal injury for these biomascots anyway? Even wounds from devastating weapons such as explosives can be granted, or can be healed in at least a minute or half at most. G67C1's eyes are also interesting. From what he observed, his eye color will shift depending on his current state of mind. When he is docile, his eyes will turn green. When he is hungry or hostile, his eyes will turn orange. When he is cautious or defensive, his eyes will turn blue. And when he is hyper-aggressive, his eyes will turn red. So that explains why you can't hit him when he turns blue, because he's defensive. He's like parrying you or something, I'm guessing. We believe that his eyes can turn various other colors, although we have not seen them yet due to his range of emotions being limited at the moment. G67C1 is a valuable asset to Project Emerald and is subject to further testing in various categories. Future testing. He is currently being held in Floor 3, Private Observation Cell 3 for study, so not in the feral holding cells like everyone else. Again, what's also interesting for Mario, they don't make any mention of Project Emerald, I realize. I don't think I've seen anything here with regards to that. And it does seem like Mario is indeed the latest one, because I think the only one that's close to that time period was, let's see, this is February 2003. I think Ness was March 8th, 2002, so beforehand. Meta Knight does not have any dates, I don't think. Not that I remember seeing. We have Kirby dated, I think, 2003 as well, September 2003. So that's kind of after Ness, right? That's after Ness, and that's after Link, who was February 2003. Samus. So this is B0983, Ridley, Stella Grand. Stella Grand. Any relation to Juniper Grand? That's very interesting. Okay. Stella Grand was an entertainer here at the park before her assimilation with B0983 on May 5th, 2003. Her sister Juniper was the one who recommended her for B0983 to Dr. Craigsmith and Leonard. Initially, Craigsmith and the other staff were bewildered by not only this, but also Leonard's immediate approval of this recommendation. Juniper really put her own sister up for this? Okay, yeah, She was well, and she is more in the know than I thought. I thought she only knew, like, yeah, okay, in reality, yeah, there's something really weird happening with mascots here. I just didn't want to admit it because, you know, we're being watched. But no, she's like, she's in it. She's involved in it. And it's super suspicious that Leonard approved of this, right? Craigsmith was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, the fact that all the other seven, like you put up your own sister for this, like, that's crazy. Upon later questioning of this by Dr. Silver, Leonard relented and briefly explained that, according to Juniper, before her mother died in March, she set up a hidden camera in their kitchen because of Stella's erratic behavior. This was apparently a smart move, as Juniper later got the footage from the camera and found Stella lacing her mom's coffee with an unknown liquid. Later that day, she fell limp in the living room and died. Silver and Craigsmith arranged a meeting with her shortly after Leonard's, where she explained further, clarifying some details and even showing the footage she captured. After some careful consideration, Silver and Craigsmith eventually relented and concurred with Leonard. Stella was later seized in a break room and put under for surgery. All procedures went well, even if B0983 still turned feral. Wow. Stella, so what a family. Stella kills their mom. And so, as revenge, Juniper sets Stella up to become a biomascot. Wow. Okay. B0983 is an exceptional experiment, able to traverse large dark areas moderately fast, and can even break down doors made of steel within seconds. Despite these impressive feats, they did not present abilities that made them unique compared to other experiments. Because of this, they were quickly used in tests to see how effective stronger experiments are, even when missing limbs or vital functions. As a result, B0983's left leg and right arm were removed, and shockingly, not only did they have no reaction to the process, but also failed to inhibit their abilities. From this point on, their balance was exceptional, and she could still travel large areas with similar speeds. The only ability of B0983 that this test weakened was her strength, as while she could still break down doors with moderate ease, electronically locked doors have proven to be a difficulty for her. While these feats are impressive, further research is required to see B0983's limits, and is currently in holding cell A3 on the second floor. Just wow. That was not the story I was expecting to read there. Now, Fox Marionette. F791G, R-Wing, Vulpus species? Ah, they didn't use a human for this one. So this is the first prototype for Phase 1 of Project Emerald. During Phase 1, animal hosts were used in the creation of biomascots to test if they were viable as hosts for future experiments. This phase did not last very long, however, as it didn't take too much time to figure out that the intelligence of most animals were not enough for more complex procedures. While this is also the case for F791G, he did show impressive signs of intelligence and especially assisted our progression towards Phase 2 and even future phases to a lesser extent. Despite being feral, they exhibited impressive feats such as increased speeds and burrowing due to his new body, able to dig underneath large masses of land in minutes. To further test this ability, their legs were severed. Not only did F791G have no reaction to this, but it also failed to handicap him as his burrowing speed did not falter. Even though F791G helped in progression toward Project Emerald and possessed interesting capabilities, complex use of him is not possible, and deterring him is rather easy, with bright lights being very effective in scaring him off. Held and obviously holding cell A3 with other feral biomascots. Wow. Okay, so that explains why they literally just bark at the bloody thing the whole time. And now we have Mascot Olimar. I don't even know what this is supposed to be. E9781, a Bulborb Sebastian Edgar Feral. 2 pages. An accounting agent at Wolf & Company PC who was selected by, yet again, Detective Brooks due to his stocky build and rather negative perception in the community. On June 23, 2002, he was seized on his way home by one of our collection crew members. Later that night, he was assimilated with E9781 and all producers were initially successful. E9781 was created for the intended purpose of filming commercials for private investors in order to showcase the potential of biomascots. During the first filming shot with E9781, however, an incident occurred that not only fried the inhibitor panel connected to his brain, but also caused him to enter a melting pot phase. So melting pot phases are pretty much just like extreme fusion, like they literally just start melting and meshing even more than what's intended. He started to stumble around the room before eventually falling on top of a Bulborb prop. As a result, E9781's face melted into and fused with the prop before hardening. Shortly afterwards, they turned feral and lashed out at staff. While he failed to cause any fatalities or injuries, he did loosen a panel from the ceiling that fell down and severed his lower half from his torso, rendering him unconscious in the process. It is still unknown as to how E9781's panel fried, as it was properly tested and secured before filming could start. Dr. Clint was consulted about this as he was the last to use the chip, although he had no further information to share outside of what was already known. So that's a 4th Doctor, right? We have Silver, Clint, Leonard, and what was the other Doctor that was like shook about what was happening with Samus? Craig Smith. While E9781 lacks methods to kill his prey outside of his arms, he is quite stealthy and can oftentimes go from one area to another without being detected. During cognitive tests, cameras were set up around a designated area in order to see if they could be detected as he maneuvered towards the opposite direction of the area. They managed to reach the other side without being seen or heard once, a result that would remain unchanged after this test was repeated with more cameras and tools to detect sound. They also possess a feature similar to that of G67C1's, his eyes. Unlike G67C1's, however, they function rather differently. Instead of acting as a visible representation of his mood, they instead act as a method of communication, specifically towards what he wants the temperature to be. Strangely, E9781 is focused less on food and more towards the current temperature of his surroundings. So, it's interesting that they talk about how it's weird that they're not focused on food. I don't know what food exactly has to do with all this. Maybe because they're biomascots and probably have some sort of hunger to deal with. When he wants it changed, his eyes will change to red, blue, or both red and blue. We are still unsure as to why he has a hyperfixation on temperature, although we believe that it may be a result of the commercial incident. Staff who have failed to maintain his temperature requests have either been fatally injured or killed. 3 staff members have been killed by him so far. While these findings are interesting, not much has been found about E9781 being beneficial to Emerald, and so we're left in A3, holding cell, floor 2. Even as we go through all of these, I still this Project Emerald to get what I imagine is the perfect biomascot. Is it a goal to make mascots more personable, more human? Next we have Mascot Mario. M33D10. There we go. M33D10 was used to grab Jacob Noel. Mascot Mario Jumpman. Axel Brooks subjugated. So only the Mario ones are subjugated. Axel Brooks was one of our most valuable assets for Project Emerald because of his former position. Brooks, oh my god, because of his former position as a private detective and police officer, so he was an actual detective, he had the skills and connections that we needed in order to acquire more hosts for the biomascots. Axel delivered what we hired him for and acquired us countless test subjects. Not only that, but Axel also kept us off law enforcement and the FBI's radar, cleaned up and disposed of evidence, and even gave suggestions as to who should be used for assimilations. Over time, however, the Onyx relationship with Axel soured after leaks started to get out. Luckily, they were blocked before the public could find them, although it was still a major problem, which is why they just had to get rid of Brooks. It didn't take long for us to figure out that he was the source of them and that he had demands. He wanted to keep Onyx Dunes and Project Emerald on his leash, otherwise he'd use his connections to spread the more damaging leaks he had. After Leonard called with him on November 16, 2003, a plan was put into effect to get rid of him. The plan proved successful in the end, as later that night, Axel was seized, although with struggle, by our collection crew and brought back to the park. He later was assimilated with M33D10 without issue and became one of our most valuable experiments. Incredibly, M33D10 was not only obedient to commands but also said obedience never went away. While M33D10 could not become a public biomascot, plenty of use could still come from him, not only from the potential research that could lead to development of a stable biomascot, but also from M33D10 himself. So, Dr. Silver made a decision and started to tinker with M33D10, giving new enhancements, saw blades that were attached where his left arm was and to his mouth, and a speaker was installed to his torso that allowed for the mimicry of sounds around him. Since then, he has been used for disposing of former employees, luring park guests to use in experiments, and cleaning up evidence. M33D10 is currently our most efficient experiment, and the future use we can get out of him via our brain scans will be highly important to the future of Project Emerald. M33D10, while not being the quickest experiment, has plenty of other skills at his disposal. With his saws, killing prey is rather easy for him, helped by his mimicry luring those into a false sense of security. His success rate is currently 99%, so I wonder when he failed. While M33D10 is extremely useful, he is not without his weaknesses. Two that we have found so far involve bright flashes of light and electric shocks. While neither of these are enough to incapacitate him, they are enough to deter him, at least for a short period of time. Something else we've noticed is that M33D10 can see very well, better than most of our experiments. We believe that this is the result of his red eyes, which appear to enhance his sight. Overall, they are one of our most crucial milestones, and both him and his brain scans will serve Onyx and Project Emerald well. In Floor 2, holding cell A9 for further research and experimentation. Wow, that's a lot. And we still have 3 more. So, Mascot Mega Man, G70 B91, Buster, Bennett Franklin. Bennett Franklin was a part of the maintenance team for the park before his assimilation on October 21st, 2003. They were chosen as a result of misconduct and property damage he caused when on duty. After he was seized for the construction site at the construction site for Metroid Mayhem, he was brought in for surgery where all procedures initially went well. Shortly after the procedures, however, they attacked one of our surgeons. Beforehand, he pretended that he was docile and made the other staff think he was harmless. During his struggle with the surgeon, they entered a melting pot phase which caused his face to start melting. So the melting pot phase is usually like, I guess, during a high state of stress, it sounds like, and that's when the surgery, like, they start melting essentially. This distracted G70 B91, which left him open as the surgeon escaped and security entered the room. Before they could subdue him, however, they lunged at one of the guards before being tossed off. As a result, he slammed into a nearby wall and ruptured a steam pipe that released searing hot steam into his face, melting it off even further and immobilizing him. Luckily, no injury was caused to staff, and G70 B91 was stabilized afterwards, even in spite of his condition. It is believed that their thrill from attacking the surgeon caused them to enter a melting pot phase. So not even stress, but like extreme emotion. From now on, further policies will be enforced to prevent staff from getting too comfortable around biomascots, even if they appear non-hostile. While there is not much to say about G70 B91 due to his rather standard condition, he has presented surprising amounts of intelligence towards manipulation. He has tried a variety of tactics that involve tricking unknowing staff that he's harmless, only to attack them later on. Thankfully, he has not managed to kill any staff so far and has only caused minor injury. Nonetheless, it is very important for guards to keep an eye on him and for staff to be cautious when interacting with him. And is currently in floor 2, holding cell A3. Next, the Villager. D45M11, Hatchet, Maria, I don't know why I said Maria Winslow. They were a private investigator who started to stick her nose into our affairs and even breached our bunker. Thankfully, she was detained before she could get out with the file she stole, courtesy of M33D10. She's a lot like us, basically. A detective that broke into the bunker, getting the files. Only we succeeded where she failed. She later was assimilated with D45M11, where all procedures went accordingly, and was created for commercials that could be shown for private investors like E9781, which I think... Who's E9781 again? I'm trying to, like, actually remember these. E9781 was Olimar. I just realized, you can see the eyes too, like, too much. Also, like East 9781, however, things didn't pan out as we wanted. As filming our commercial started, they initially followed commands and acted flawlessly. However, when a staff member walked on set in costume to interact with her, she knocked the head off his costume and used the prop axe she had been given to decapitate him. She thankfully was sedated by security before she could cause further fatalities, although the damage had been done and staff were left shocked. I thought it was a prop axe. There's no way they gave her a real axe. Like, the hell? Why? They have their own fault to blame for that. It's just their fault. Upon further review of CCTV footage, it was found that D45M11 had not only cut open her head in order to get the inhibitor panel out, but had also used the metal components attached to the inhibitor panel to sharpen her hatchet when staff weren't looking and fashion it into a weapon. Leonard was furious, and most of the staff who failed to keep better watch her were demoted. Dr. Craig Smith, meanwhile, found D45M11 fascinating in order to be placed into a private observation cell for further study. So she literally just, like, she pretty much, you know, she cracked her own code, removed the inhibitor panel, made her own weapon, and just killed someone. And the fact that she has to do all that with that smile is horrendous. That's honestly pretty crazy. Talk about a huge lapse in security again. Now, they are one of the most intelligent experiments by far, has presented countless showings of wit, escaping her cell, creating weapons from scrap metal, sneaking around the bunker undetected, etc. While she still hunts prey like all the other feral biomascots, she satiates her hunger in more creative and intelligent ways compared to most of the others. She is prone to using pieces of her suit that connect her to the host as ways to pick locks, disable security feeds, and craft tools. Even after installing various safeguards to her suits to prevent this, she always finds a way around it and continues. While this level of intelligence cannot be used in public biomascots for a multitude of reasons, further research will be conducted in order to see if that intelligence can be utilized in a way that can benefit Onyx Dunes and Project Emerald. So they're also in a private observation cell on floor 3. Another very interesting subject. Wow. And then we have Andross Marionette, a very odd design. D09RA1 Lilat species, another creature. Lophura locomlanos, subjugated, not feral this time. D09RA1 was initially the second animal prototype for Phase 1 of Project Emerald. Unlike F791G, however, this one possessed little to no defining abilities, let alone aspects that could be utilized towards the progression of Project Emerald. This did not remain for too long, however, as during the initial stages of Phase 2, Dr. Silver finished developing an experimental AI that he dubbed as ALSC, Advanced Learning Supercomputer. Over time, ALSC became impressively intelligent and heavily assisted in the development of Project Emerald, and eventually requested a body for him to use, something staff were hesitant on. Silver, however, accepted his request and had him grafted to the body of D09RA1. Silver was still cautious of this decision and chose D09RA1 due to his mobility, even in spite of his missing legs, yet his lack of ways in killing or injuring staff. This decision was thankfully not a misstep, as ALSC would continue in effectively progressing Project Emerald and providing further information towards how his body functions. While ALSC is not fully trusted yet, he has been given controlled access to security systems in lower floors and has the ability to make PA announcements in case of security breaches, which is so we're pretty much hearing Andross at the beginning of Night 6. Most impressively, ALSC can conduct biomascots towards the location of those marked as threats to Onyx Dunes and Project Emerald in order to carry out termination. Even though Dr. Silver has extensively made sure that this ability can only be used against rats and threats to the company and not regular staff, ALSC is still allowed to use it when necessary, and is currently in Floor 3, Private Observation Cell 1. So it makes you wonder then, does that mean ALSC is the one responsible for sending the biomascots to us throughout the entire game? Because that's what it sounds like they're capable of doing. That might explain why all of them are not in their cells. If, you know, this ALSC freed them so that they could, you know, take care of us, that they determined that we were actually a threat. So for the most part, we learned that all these mascots are pretty much meshes or combinations, like fusions, you know, surgically done. So between the mascots, or in some cases animatronics, and humans that for the most part are easily forgettable or no one will miss, and except for some scenarios, I suppose, where it was volunteered. And this is all in hopes of achieving Project Emerald, or for Project Emerald, which we don't really know yet. We haven't really learned much information on Project Emerald itself. All we know is that the biomascots, you know, they have like all these abilities and everything, but also seems to affect them on some sort of personality level, I would say. Like, they have interesting behaviors, like Link using their eyes to kind of dictate what their emotions are like. The only thing is, what is the real end goal, right? Because, I mean, it looks like for something like Ness, for example, they tried, with Ness, they tried to give directions, like sending food, like entering a location with food, but they took different routes. It seems like, again, these biomascots are meant to be shown to the public, but obviously, most of these mascots are failures. Right? Whether due to the fact that they literally cannot be presented to the public based on what they look like, or due to their significant intelligence, like Villager, for example. I mean, even without the intelligence part, can you really let this thing out? But it is very interesting. It is a really cool take on how, you know, to explain why these characters are after you. It's not really possession so much so, but it's, I don't know how to explain it. It reminds me a bit of Five Nights at Maggie's, where John McAdams, right, was trying to unlock the key to immortality by putting the minds of people in animatronic mascots, right, so that they can live forever. And this kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but it's not really clear that the goal is immortality. There is nothing to suggest that they're looking to create immortal life, essentially. To some degree, right, a lot of these characters aren't even like themselves. They don't talk about whether they retain the personality traits of their hosts. They talk a lot about whether they are actually subjugated, whether they have obedience. So it seems like they're still trying to actually have control over these mascots for the park. But obviously that failed on a variety of levels. And also, I guess one other thing I did not mention, or I guess one detail, they never said anything about the kid, right? Like, you know how they talked about Daniel Ferris was the last child captured by the M4 or the Mappy animatronic? They never explained this. Like last child captured by the Mappy animatronic. We don't even know what this animatronic is. There's only two animatronics that we know of: Mario, which, I mean, unless M4PPY is meant to obscure the name Mario, in which case could be this, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know, could that actually be a way of hiding the word Mario? I doubt it, especially since they haven't referred to any of them by name and just by their model number. If it was actually the Mario animatronic, I think they would have just went with D590. And obviously the only other animatronic is Meta Knight C66A2, and I guess technically, or the closest thing would be Andross Marionette, but they're not really referred to as animatronic, and they are D09RA1. So as for why they took a child for Pikachu, I guess, well, because of the physical dimensions and everything, but still, like, a very specific detail. Last child captured, but the only one that was ever used when assimilating. So what did they do with the other children that they have captured? Because it seems like there are other children that they have captured. So there, you know, a lot of questions are still to be answered about Project Emerald, Onyx Dunes, the purpose of the biomascots. You know, we'll see how they end up creating the Delfino Resort, considering that they were shut down. Where did Mario go? Where did the mascot Mario go specifically? Because this guy disappeared. No clue where he went. But overall, that is gonna be it for Lateshift at Nintendo World. I don't know what's up with all of this, right? These characters. I don't know if that's meant to, like, I don't know what this is for. If you know what this is for, let me know in the comments if there's a way for me to unlock these, or if these are meant to be unlocked at all, or just a teaser saying there are more mascots or biomascots out there that we just have not learned yet. Because I'm pretty sure that's the case. I don't think these are the only ones. So maybe this is just teasing that, yeah, there are more. You're just not going to learn about them in this game. And overall, great job to Solar Neon. What a great game. Gameplay-wise, very tough. Honestly, the scripted nature of this game, with like some obviously RNG mixed in, is quite a... It really reminded me to, you know, it reminded me of Mary's Arcade a lot, especially Custom Night, because considering how long that video is, you know, I beat Mary's Arcade Custom Night back in 2022, early 2022, like January, around that time, or February even. And that is arguably one of the toughest experiences I ever had with a Custom Night. Given I didn't have much experiences with Custom Night, you know, among multiple fan games and whatnot, but that took me, from what I remember, about 4 hours to beat. Lateshift at Nintendo World took me about 2.5 hours. And for the most part, a lot of that was because, you know, the RNG always caught me off guard one way or another, with Kirby showing up on the right instead of the left, or sometimes Samus would take a while to show up and I couldn't deal with them in time. Sometimes Luigi was so delayed that Mario arrived before Luigi did, which really threw me off guard. But overall, the gameplay was great. It offered quite the challenge, and it's, even though, like, I would say that some of that challenge did come from the RNG, the scripted nature was so fun as well, because I was able to learn and, like, try and jot down, like, okay, I have to remember the sequence of events and how to handle it, right? How to handle when to go in the shed and wait out the Meta Knight or Luigi. That was really fun to do. And from a story aspect, very interesting. I love the take on these biomascots, how it's not just people possessing the suits necessarily, but they are surgically combined, and they have like inhibitor chips. It's like very like obviously unethical experimentation sci-fi type of idea. And that reminds me of Five Nights at Maggie's a little bit, with John McAdams and his experiments. Really cool take, and I'm curious to learn more about Project Emerald, the real purpose of these biomascots, and what's gonna happen, I guess, at Delfino's Resort. So I'll be keeping an eye on that sequel. But of course, with all that said, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know you're enjoying the content and want to see more of it. Here are the credits. Great job to everyone that was part of the game. Really enjoyed it. The game will be in the description below, as always. And with that said, I'll see you in another video. Take care.